Have you ever had one of those moments where you're just so overwhelmed by God, where you just felt His love in some awesome way that you really can't even imagine or fathom? Well, I want to share a story with you about my life. See, a few years back, my wife and I were missionaries in North Carolina up in the mountains at a Christian camp, and we got a phone call that her grandfather had passed away up in the Chicagoland area. And so her parents got us some plane tickets because we were missionaries. We didn't have a lot of money. And we flew up to Chicago and we were able to go to the funeral, and that was awesome. But we were missionaries at a small Christian camp. There was a bunch of kids coming into the camp, so we needed to get back. And we bought the tickets online at one of the online sites when they first started to come out. And somehow there was a glitch, and we were supposed to get on a plane one day, and they said we wouldn't be able to get on a plane for 2 more days. So I am, in my humanness, completely ticked and frustrated. And we called my mom and dad that lived over in the Wisconsin area, and they went to church with a guy who worked for an airline who gave us a buddy pass so that we could get home. So we drove from the Chicagoland area, northwest Indiana, and we drove over to Milwaukee, where we were able to get on a plane. But in order to get home, instead of just going from Chicago to Charlotte, I now had to go from Milwaukee to Detroit, got on a plane from Detroit to Charlotte. Well, I'm from Detroit. That's where I was born and raised all the way up through middle school. So we land in Detroit, and we get off the plane, and it was like something out of a stinking movie where you're looking at the monitor, and as I'm looking at it, it goes canceled, 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 all the way down the screen. Unbelievable. And so at this point, I am really upset. I am really frustrated. I just want to get home. There's kids coming in. I have a job to do, and I can't get there. And so we start calling some of my family that I have in the Detroit area to find a place to stay, because there was supposedly an ice storm that was supposed to come in that never actually did come in. And as we're getting ready to walk out the airport, I hear over the loudspeaker, "Paul Culbertson, you have a call at the emergency desk." Now, I'm not sure how many of you have ever been to the Detroit airport, but the Detroit airport is pretty huge. And to hear your name over the speaker like this, and I'm thinking, who even knows that I'm in Detroit, because I was never supposed to be here? I was supposed to be on a flight from Chicago to Charlotte. I wasn't supposed to get on a plane in Milwaukee and stop in Detroit. So there's only a handful of people that even know that I'm there. And so I get this message that I'm supposed to call my dad that lives up in northern Michigan, and I call my dad, and he tells me that my grandmother died that morning in Detroit. Now, my grandmother was healthy. She, just a couple of weeks prior, when we were up visiting, we went out to dinner, and she drove, and everything was fine, and she just went to sleep and never woke up. But I wasn't supposed to be in Detroit. I was supposed to be back in North Carolina. But God, in His sovereignty and in His love and care for me as one of His children, brought me exactly where I needed to be. Now, prior to getting this information about my grandmother, I did not want to be in Detroit. I did not want to be there. But God knew that's where I needed to be. And He brought me there. And I'm sharing this with you because it was one of those moments that I felt God's love overwhelm me in a way that just said, "Paul, you have to trust me. I know you better than you know yourself. I know all that's taking place. I am bringing you where you need to be because I love you." And so maybe some of you are in a place right now that you're like, "Why am I here? Why is the job not opened up yet? Why is this happening? Why is this seem to be going so wrong or so bad? Or maybe you're just frustrated with life. And I just want to encourage you today to say maybe you're exactly where God wants you to be. And even though it's hard, like it was hard for me to go through the death of my grandmother, maybe where you're at right now, God has you there for His glory and His purposes. And maybe right now He's preparing you to use you in a way that you don't understand that He needs you to use you in. And maybe the weight that you've been waiting on that's caused all the frustration has a much bigger meaning than you understand today. One thing I know about God more than anything is that love does. And He does. And He brings us where we need to be.